thank you, everybody. I'm going to first call to order reinvestment zone number 16, City of Houston. We're going to go, everybody recalls, we're going to have a couple of roll calls on a process that we've done before. First, we'll go through the board.
Join the conference.
First, we're going to go through the board member roll call. As I call your name, please state whether you're present. Robert Clay is not scheduled to attend. Dot Cunningham.
Present.
Ethel Johnson.
Present.
Steve Lerner is present. Kendall Miller shows not scheduled to attend. Judson Robinson. Judson on the line. Lisa Simon.
Present.
Thank you, Lisa. Louis Sklar.
Present.
Mary Carmen Tamez.
Present.
Okay, great. Now we're going to go through the staff member roll call. I'd like the Uptown staff to please identify themselves.
Andrew Gerridge.
Bob Ethington.
Stephen Wood.
Betsy Kirkgard.
Shannon Daniels.
John Breeding.
Amy Escalante.
Josh Flowers.
Delia Miswah.
Nagwani Sarn.
That's all.
Okay, that's all the staff. The public, I'm sure we have a few members of the public on the call, so just take your turns, give each other a chance to do so. So please, members of the public, identify yourselves now.
This is Kathleen
Holodeck with, we just can't do it, with Alan Boone Humphreys Robinson, and
this is Kathleen Ellison from Norton Rose Fulbright.
this is Kristen Blomquist with Masterson Advisors.
This is Charlotte Knight Marshall with TKG and Associates. Peggy Foreman, Bernie and Foreman.
Ben Terry for Masterson Advisors is here.
Keith Curvin with TKG is here.
Anyone else?
I heard Drew on the call, but he might be on mute. Drew Masterson.
Yes, Drew Masterson with Masterson Advisors.
Okay, great. Anybody else? Please speak up. Okay, so the conference call rules, please say your name first before you're speaking, and let's everybody please mute your phone. If you are not speaking, it'll make it all go a little bit better. So our first order on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the December 8th, 2020 meeting. I would like to request a motion approving the minutes.
This is Mary Carmen Tamez. I'll second.
Okay, I'm sorry, who was it that made the motion?
Dot Cunningham. Sorry, Dot.
Thank you, Dot. No, all works out. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. We will now suspend reinvestment zone number 16, City of Houston, Texas meeting, and we will call to order Uptown Development Authority meeting, and we're going to go through the same process as before. First, we'll start with the board member roll call. Again, please say if you're present. Robert Clay is not scheduled to attend. Dot Cunningham.
Present.
Ethel Johnson.
Present.
Steve Lerner is present. Kendall Miller is not scheduled to attend. Judson Robinson. Louis Sklar.
Present.
Lisa Simon.
Present.
Mary Carmen Tamez.
Present.
Okay, thank you. And staff members, if you will please identify yourselves now.
Andrew Gerridge.
Bob Ethington.
Stephen Wood.
Betsy Kirkgard.
Shannon Daniels.
John Breeding.
Josh Flowers.
Delia Miswah.
Nagwani Sarn. Amy Escalante.
Is that all the staff?
That's it. That's all.
Okay, terrific. Public roll call again. I'm asking the members of the public to please identify yourselves as you did before.
This is Jessica Holodeck with Alan Boone Humphreys Robinson.
This is Kathleen Ellison with Norton Rose Fulbright.
This is
Kristen
Charlotte
Blomquist.
Knight Marshall with TKG and Associates.
Kristen Blomquist with Masterson Advisors.
Drew Masterson with Masterson Advisors.
Keith Carvin with TKG. Ben Terry from Masterson Advisors.
Anybody else in the public?
I think Peggy was here a moment ago. Ms. Foreman, are you still with us? She may have stepped away for a moment. She'll.
I heard her.
Oh,
No, I'm here.
Okay.
They heard me early with Peggy Foreman, Bernie and Foreman.
Okay. Thank you.
thank you very much. At this time, we'll receive any comments or questions from the public. If anyone wishes to make any comments at this time, I don't know, Betsy, if anybody has signed up to do so.
No.
No one has notified us they wanted to speak.
Okay, thank you. Our next order of business will be to approve the minutes of the December 8, 2020 meeting. If I can request a motion to approve the minutes, please.
Lisa Simon, I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Mary Carmen
Second.
Tenez, I will second.
Okay, thank you very much. Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, now we're going to discuss the financing plan for the proposed 2021 affordable housing bond issue that we have been discussing. Stephen, is that you? Kristen, together? We'll turn it over to you for the moment.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Stephen Wood here at the UDA. I'd like to ask Kristen Blomquist with Masterson Advisors to take the board through their financing plan for this proposed transaction.
And if you will begin by turning to page 4 in your board book. Kristen?
Yes, thank you so much. So this transaction is, so we provided a new financing plan this afternoon. So this transaction has kind of evolved a little bit since our discussion last month. Our discussion was one single transaction, $100 million transaction as a public offering. And over the course of the last few weeks, we were approached by a bank, Texas Capital Bank. If you change to the second page, Texas Capital Bank approached us requesting the ability to purchase the first half of the transaction. And so what we did was we analyzed between a one-issue public offering and splitting it into two transactions, one being the private placement for the first half, and then the second half as a public offering, and comparing the two to see if there was any savings. And based on the rate that we received from Texas Capital Bank of 1.77% at the time, now 1.75%, there's about $4.2 million in savings if we were to bifurcate the deal. So now we are rolling with two different transactions at the same time, and one potentially being placed with Texas Capital Bank if you approve their term sheet, and then the other as a public offering, the last 10 years as a public offering. And during this process, we reached out to a few other banks just to kind of get a feel for the market to see if, does it make sense to move forward with an RFP? Should we move forward with Texas Capital Bank? So we received a few generic rates just to kind of get a feel, and they all seemed, much higher than what we received from Texas Capital Bank. And we also have been working with a placement agent to get more, to reach out to other banks, because a placement agent has a much wider group of banks that they work with. They can discuss more specifics about the transaction and he's been in contact with many other banks and has been getting kind of some indications from other banks, and still the 1.75 from Texas Capital is much better than what we could get from an RFP process. So that's why we're moving with 2 different transactions instead of just one. And so on the second page,
page 6.
Go ahead. Sorry, yes, page 6. Is the financing team for the private placement. And so you have your co-financial advisors, Masterson Advisor and TKG and Associates, co-bond counsel, which is ABHR and Bernie and Foreman, our placement agent, which is the broker-dealer that we've been working with to work with banks to get a feel for the rates, as well as the potential purchasing bank, Texas Capital Bank, and their counsel, which is ORIC. And as financial advisor, we are the ones that advise you on all matters bond issue, as well as represent you in the bond market. We work with the underwriters, and we help with all the documents and financial information. Your bond counsel is going to provide a legal opinion as well as draft multiple legal documents that help get this transaction through the Attorney General to make it an ironclad binding agreement from state securities law, as well as, of course, provide counsel to you all with regards to this transaction. The purchasing bank is the one that's going to buy and hold the transaction, so it'll be about 45 to 50 million for the first half of the full amount of bonds. Their counsel, of course, is going to represent the bank and advise them, review all the documents on their behalf. And our placement agent is Huntington Securities. They're the ones that can negotiate and communicate with any potential purchasing banks, and they're required by securities law because Masterson Advisors is not a broker-dealer. And on the next page is our financing team for the public offering piece, the Series 2021 Bs. Your financial advisor and bond counsel are the same. We'll be working on both transactions. We will have disclosure counsel, Norton Rose Fulbright. They're the ones that complete a document known as a preliminary official statement that has all of the disclosure information that a potential investor would want to know. So it has all financing information, it has all risk factors, status of development, anything that a investor would want to know in order to make a decision to purchase your bonds. And the underwriters, the underwriting syndicate that you'll be approving today, we have as UBS Financial Services, Hilltop Securities, and Loop Capital Markets. They will be the ones that purchase the transaction on pricing to sell to potential investors or to sell to investors. And they will also have their counsel representing them, underwriters counsel. And we aren't sure who underwriters counsel will be, but they will let us know once we get down the road. The next page is our timeline for the public offering piece. So we're going to be moving pretty fast. Today, we will be sending around the preliminary official statement to the working group as well as to the rating agency, S&P. They will be providing a rating on this transaction for when we market the bonds. And after a few turns of the documents, we will bring those documents to you all at the January 27th meeting. And shortly thereafter, we will price these bonds on February 3rd. And then it takes a few weeks to get through the Attorney General's office. So bond counsel will get it through the Attorney General's office, and we are scheduled to close on February 26th. So this is a lot. Stop me if there's anything that you all have questions about. I'm moving pretty quickly, so please feel free if you have questions to stop me. I'm happy to answer any.
This is Steve Lerner. I've just got a couple of questions, and I guess some of them may be answered by looking at page 10, which shows how the two series of bonds work together. But so, am I correct in reading this that the Texas Capital Bank tranche is only a 10-year tranche? Is that right?
That's exactly right. Yes.
And a 20-year for the rest?
That's correct. So Texas Capital will be purchasing the first 10 years, exactly. And we will be going to public market for all the additional maturities through expiration of the zone. So those next roughly 10 years.
Okay, so I'm also focusing on the all-in rate, and I assume that's a function of the actual net proceeds that are received out of the total par amount. So the effective rate, I assume, is on the amount that we actually get into the account of the issuing authority. Is that right?
The all-in, the 3.34% you're referring to?
Well, I was looking at each one of them. So, for example, you had mentioned that Texas Capital quoted 1.75, but the all-in cost is 2.28. And is that a function of the actual net proceeds less cost of issuance, et cetera, et cetera?
Yes, it takes into account all cost of issuance. Exactly right.
Okay.
I have just one question. We talked last time about whether or not we would be issuing taxable or non-taxable bonds. It looks like from the interest rates, these are taxable. Am I right?
These are taxable. Yes, sir. Both transactions are taxable.
Thanks.
And I guess the other question that I have is, what is the nominal rate on, because I see the all-in cost is 362. What is the nominal rate on the bonds?
The coupon?
Let me grab that for you real quick.
In other words, what compares to 175 for Texas Capital?
Sure, yes. Let me grab that real fast.
Just a side note.
In general, this is Drew Masterson. I would say, as she's looking that up, the nominal rate for each maturity from year 2032 to 2042 is different, but she can give you the average nominal rate.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Thank you.
So it's 3.25%, roughly.
And I guess another question, in this market, is it correct or is it right at all that the banks only would want to buy a 10-year or shorter maturity?
That's exactly right. So 10 years kind of their sweet spot. They'll go out as far as 15, but being that this is such a large transaction, Texas Capital and the other banks are comfortable with about that 10-year.
Okay, so where I'm going with this is that it seems to me that even if other banks were willing to pay an interest rate somewhere between what Texas Capital is paying and what we would get in the bond market, it doesn't really work because they need a 10-year maturity and then all the coverage ratios don't work. Is that right? In other words, you've really got to issue a 20-year bond for the other half or more of the total issuance to make your debt service coverages the way you need them to be.
Yes.
Yes. So we are limited to that cash flow.
Yeah, I didn't probably say that very well. I'm sorry. But,
Steve,
you figured out what I was asking.
Steve, just as a side point, even this combined, even the 362, our bonds in the TIRZ are considered revenue bonds. If we were selling this through the district, for example, those rates would be much lower than that. And so we always pay a little bit higher interest rate for a revenue-based bond through the TIRZ, but we've never done anything that's close to 3.34. Obviously, these are very different times.
That's right.
But this, I mean, I would say the good rates have been in the 4.5s, and we may have had even some 5s over the years.
Okay.
So in total, this is a pretty good rate. And the reason why, and just one last thing, since this tastes so good to do 10 years, And you know, basically we can't get the, and you raise that question, I'll shut up. The bottom line is the banks don't want to go out any further than 10. But one question I had.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
I'm sorry.
Charlotte, the reason that the bank rates are so low, as you know, is because of the duration. So their exposure on a shorter duration gives them the ability to give you a much lower rate, which combined with the long-term rate ends you up with what you have, which is, as you stated, significantly lower than what you've issued at in the past.
Yeah, makes sense. No, my overall comment, John, was going to say that, you know, this is a very interesting plan with the combination probably gets us better than we would otherwise get. I mean, and it appears that we don't have any real concerns about the debt coverage.
That looks good.
That's right.
Can we refund or call the 20-year bonds at any time? I didn't read the document close enough to know that answer.
Sure. So the private placement has a 5-year call, so in 5 years we can refinance. And the public sale, we're probably going to have either a 10-year or maybe a 9-year call, because that's kind of the market right now. But since these are taxable, I mean, we can, you know, advance refund. That's kind of getting in the weeds. But so we have a 5-year call and a 10-year call for the two transactions.
So I think
those calls are at par?
Yes, they are par calls.
Okay, thank you.
So it gives us a little flexibility in the future. So, okay, that was my only question.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good question.
Very interesting.
So this,
yes, and we are at historically low interest rates right now, so this is a great time to issue taxable bonds. Yeah, 3.34% on a BAA TIRZ for 20 years. I mean, that's pretty remarkable.
Okay.
So that's
questions. Yeah, let me just ask if any others have questions at this juncture before we move on. Any other questions? Okay, please continue.
Well, that's you know. Go ahead.
Well, there's no action under the financing plan now, but our next subsequent items, we actually select our underwriters, select our placement. So, Mr. Chairman, I want to make sure everybody has all the questions that they have about the financing plan. If not, I think we could step forward.
Okay. Anybody please ask any questions about the financing plan. This is a large transaction, so I want to make sure everybody has that chance to ask questions. So I thank the very clear presentation. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, if we could, may I ask Stephen to take us into selection of our underwriters?
Yes, please.
Page 13.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. In consultation with the team, we're prepared to recommend a team of underwriters, which is UBS as lead underwriter, Loop Capital Markets, and Hilltop Holdings. They will be underwriting the publicly offered portion of this financing. And we've worked with UBS as lead underwriter in the past. Hilltop has also acted as lead underwriter for us in the past. All three firms have extensive experience with this type of security and with this particular market. We did review the qualifications of several other firms, and you can see that they're listed here at the bottom. But we feel like this is the best team that we can put together, and we would like to ask for your approval to put them to work.
Yeah, so kind of what you have a lot of different people that you talk to. If you just very briefly kind of your process and how you whittle it down to these three.
Well, by discussing with our financial advisor which firms they feel like have the best experience with this type of security, and specifically with this market, the Houston market and TIRZ markets, and also experience working with some of these firms in the past. Also, I think our financial advisor felt like it was it was a good idea because of the size of the transaction to have a large bank acting as lead underwriter, and that would UBS was certainly fills that role.
Yep. Okay.
I think also, Hilltop and UBS are very familiar with this specific credit. And, they are also very, very big in the taxable space. And so combining those two, it felt appropriate to include them.
Okay.
Now,
questions?
One, and that is, how is the underwriter in this transaction, how are they compensated?
Kristen, would you answer that?
Sure, absolutely. So on the following page, you'll see to the very right called the average takedown, and that's the compensation that the underwriters will receive. So every time a salesperson sells one bond, which is $1,000, they will get $4.50. And so that's how they're compensated. So all of the salespeople within each of these firms are going out and talking to all their accounts, and every time they make a sale or are allocated a bond, they get this average takedown, so the $4.50.
So how does it work when one has a different average takedown rate than the other two?
Sure. So this page was comparing rates that we had received from each of these underwriters, as well as their proposed compensation, their proposed takedown. And
right.
we compared them, or we sorted them based on their true interest cost. But since UBS will be the lead underwriter, we are going to use their average takedown on this transaction.
Okay,
so,
makes sense. Got it. And everybody knows that. Hilltop understands that, et cetera.
Yes, they all understand the lead is the one that sets the takedown. That's right.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, on this item here, we request a motion to select the underwriters for the public offering, and those underwriters are UBS as lead, Loop Capital Markets LLC, and Hilltop Holdings Inc. as our underwriters. As a note of interest, Loop Capital, one of the nation's largest minority-owned firm with really good experience in this area.
Okay, can I have a motion to that effect from one of the members, please?
Lisa Simon making a motion to approve.
Mary Carmen Temez, I second.
Thank you both. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we're on to the next item. Stephen?
Mr. Chairman, as Kristen pointed out previously, our financial advisor, Masterson, is prohibited by SEC rules from acting as municipal advisor and broker-dealer on this transaction, and specifically now we're talking about the private placement portion of the transaction. So we're required to hire a placement agent. And the placement agent, Huntington Securities, has already been working with us to assist in the selection of a bank to purchase the privately placed portion of the transaction. We recommend that the board hire Huntington Securities, and there's an agreement here, starting on page 17, for them to do that work. They charge us a flat fee of $7,500. And Kristen can talk a little bit more about it, but she did solicit some bids from other entities that could do this work for us, and the fee that they were offering, in your words, Kristen, was astronomical in comparison to this quite reasonable $7,500.
Yes.
Well, I was going to ask Kristen, $7,500 candidly doesn't sound like a lot of money.
Right.
So kind of what is this all about?
So we work with Huntington Securities as a firm very often because we do many smaller municipal utility district transactions. So we kind of have a volume, if you will, rate. And we're required to have a placement agent on all of those other transactions as well because, like Stephen had mentioned, we are not a broker-dealer. We are, by law, not allowed to negotiate and communicate with banks unless we have a broker-dealer or placement agent involved. And so Huntington Securities, we work with them all day, every day on our other transactions. So they are willing to help us out on this transaction for the same rate.
Well, and so obviously you worked with them before and you have a lot of confidence in them and recommend them, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I've been on the phone with them. Go ahead.
No, please continue.
Yes, I've been talking with Ryan O'Hara, who is the placement agent on this transaction, and he's the one that's been also communicating with many other banks, specifically regarding Uptown, because we're not allowed, like I mentioned, to have any kind of specificity with the credit. And he, came back with, this rate is a great rate. This term sheet is very good. All the other banks that I've talked with that have all of this, know more about the credit. They won't be able to get close to this rate. So, it gives us a lot more confidence in the term sheet that we've received from Texas Capital. So he's been very valuable.
Okay. Are there any other questions about the placement agent? If not, I'd like to request a motion to adopt a resolution approving that we have to approve the engagement agreement
Huntington
for the placement agreement.
Huntington Securities.
Huntington Securities.
Huntington Securities.
Yes, it's hard for me to say.
Thank you.
Louis Sklar, so moved.
Second.
Todd Cunningham seconds it.
All in favor? Please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we're next on to the Disclosure Council. Are there any, Stephen, Jessica, do you want to make any comments about that, or
Mr.
just
Chairman,
get to any questions?
You skipped an item, Mr. Chairman. We need to designate the purchaser of the private placement portion of the transaction.
Number 9.
Okay. Sorry about that.
While we're backing up just a moment, so what we are presenting to you today, and Stephen and Kristen, I think, can address this better, is that we have some time that if we wanted to consider other options, and we will continue, and really with this purchasing agent, we'll be looking at other options. But in our first go-around, Texas Capital has presented a proposal to us that we think, as reflected in these numbers that you've seen earlier in the presentation, is something that I think it's going to be very hard to beat, although we can continue to look. And we'd like to get the authorization to enter into final negotiations on this with Texas Capital Bank. I probably have said too much, Stephen.
Well, John, you said what I was going to say, and that's totally fine. Yes, we would like we'd like the board's authorization to select Texas Capital Bank as the purchaser, with the understanding that we still possibly may uncover a deal that's better than this, and if we do, of course, we'll come back to the board. But we don't think that's likely. We think that this is a great deal for a lot of reasons, and we're asking for the board's authorization to select Texas Capital Bank as the purchaser.
So my only question is, are there any issues with any of the terms that are in the term sheet?
Yeah, so I'll take that. When reading through the term sheet, there are some small adjustments that we need to make. For example, the maturity and amortization. This isn't going to be an annual principal payment. It's going to be annual debt service. So things like that throughout the term sheet need to be fixed. And the placement agent has already reached out to John Taylor. There's an echo. To have these changes. So we've already gotten confirmation to make that change, as well as in the interest rate. We're not going to be paying quarterly. We're going to be paying semi-annually. So there are just a couple of little changes that will not have a significant impact to the term sheet, just some cleanup, if you will.
Okay, I have another question there, just reading through it. The provision about deposit accounts, where there's a requirement that the borrower make its best efforts to maintain an average of $5 million in deposits, and it specifies an interest rate for the first 90 days and thereafter to be adjusted. Seems to me we ought to probably tighten up that language a bit if that's something that we agree to.
Yes, and we will work with John Taylor. And, you know, we made sure that there was the best effort in there. So if we have no deposit, then that's how it is. But, you know, it's kind of, you know, if we have money that's sitting somewhere, may as well have it sit at Texas Capital. 30 basis points is a very high rate for a fully insured, fully liquid account. It says that it'll reset over 90 or after the first 90 days, but you know, we will certainly tighten up that language once the document and the loan agreement starts being.
Okay, I'm going to apologize now for nitpicking and going back 20 years to when I used to be a lawyer, and I'd rather it say commercially reasonable efforts, because best effort literally means you will do everything you can, including spending money, to meet a best effort standard, and I would rather not do that.
Okay. I'm sorry, what was the...
commercially reasonable efforts.
Commercially...
Instead of best efforts.
Reasonable.
And please excuse my ignorance, what is the difference in that? Sorry?
I'll answer it from my perspective, so real lawyers can tell me where I'm wrong. But I've always learned that best efforts means you will do, it's almost like a hell or high water. I'll do everything I can to make it happen. Commercially reasonable efforts means I will be commercially reasonable. It is, in my view, a lower standard being imposed upon us rather than a higher standard. And I want the lowest standard I can have, because I don't want to be forced to move money around to satisfy this requirement.
Yep.
Yeah, Steve, my recollection of the old days is the same as yours, that best efforts is something many lawyers don't want you to sign up for.
Okay. Right. We really don't want to sign up for that. And I'm a little concerned about this adjustment part, because I want to make sure that we're really getting market rate. And by the way, again, I will apologize for my ignorance, but what is intra-fund network?
You know, it might be an internal fund. I'm not entirely sure what IntraFi is.
Well, what I would say there, and you can probably get some help here from Shannon Daniels at Uptown, but we need to be fully compliant with the governmental requirements for how we have deposits that are over the FDIC.
Absolutely.
So I don't know what IntraFi network means.
In my conversation with John Taylor, this is a CEDARS program. We have. Okay. I know what CEDARS is. Right. We're aware of that $250,000 increment, so that it is fully FDIC insured to the total of $5 million, and it is liquid. Okay. But yes, it is a CEDARS money market kind of fund.
You know, we might just add something that says, and otherwise in compliance with borrowers' regulatory obligations or something like that. I want to make sure whatever we do, we're going to make darn sure and, you know, Cedars does work, but that's a name that I know. I don't know what Intrify is.
You're right, Steve, and of course, we will have the opportunity to have more formal and protective language in the actual agreement with the bank that we haven't finished negotiating
And
yet.
they also have to, we give them a copy of our investment policy,
Yes.
and they have to sign off on
Oh, yeah,
that. That is
that's
part
right.
of what we do,
What-
if you recall, when we do our investment policy.
Whatever they're offering will have to comply with the Public Funds Collateral Act, or we will not put the money in the bank, and we will not be subject to any criticism from them.
And that's exactly why I want commercially reasonable in there. And I apologize for getting into the weeds on this.
Good points, good points.
It's a good detail. It's important we discuss this.
This is Charlotte. Shannon, did they give you any concession for the any percentage concession for keeping money in their bank?
Oh, no. Well,
the rate.
The 30 basis points on the balance.
But the 1.77.
The rate on the loan.
Yeah, the 1.77 is certainly.
Oh, yeah.
Is tied to us having some funds in their bank.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. That's what I thought. Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I get that.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I was just saying that to us that this is a pretty outstanding offer sheet. And now we get into the absolute details with them about finalizing that, so that all these points that you brought up are well taken.
And just to add that one last point was no reserve requirement. Correct me if I'm wrong, and that's pretty significant as well.
That's a very significant point.
Yeah, I did see that, and you're right. Because that just costs us money if we've got to have it.
Correct.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, no. I think that look, this is a terrific package. No issue with any of that. I just.
Oh no, getting into the weeds is really good. It's really good.
Yeah. We only have one or two opportunities to do this, and so I feel like we're better off asking a few of these questions more up front, so that we don't do something later on that we could have raised earlier, because we want to be fair to everybody as well. Okay.
And we can.
So.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
No. I was just going to say, please go ahead.
We can also have our placement agent continue to monitor if there are any other banks that would either match or do better. He doesn't think so, but crazier things have happened.
Well, yeah, certainly for someone to take down the sizable piece of it is just most banks they're not in the market for that.
So, Mr. Chairman, if we could request a motion to designate purchaser for the private placement to Texas Capital Bank.
May I ask one more question? Sorry. So between now and the where we discuss the sale on February 24th, will we be able to review the documents just to make sure that these changes have been made?
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
We all will, and board members will have the opportunity to do so too, if they would like to.
And Mayor
I would just ask that we circulate that to the board in at least a day or two in advance of the meeting, so that we can all
absolutely will
take a look at them.
Yeah.
And let me say that
I know.
Just highlight the changes so we don't have to look at the whole thing again.
Yes, please.
Well, I didn't think that way, but I mean,
I agree.
No, you're right.
And into the very, we think unlikely probability that we identify something better, it comes back to the board and you approve.
That's right.
You get to vote on
That's
it.
right.
So I think not only will you review the contract, you have ultimate yes and no in all this.
Okay. So any other questions about designating the Texas Capital Bank as a purchaser for the private placement? If not, I would request a motion to do that, please.
Lisa Stein makes a motion to approve.
Mary Carmen Tamez, second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Now we're on to number 10. where we need to adopt a resolution approving the engagement for Disclosure Council, Norton Rose Fulbright. Are there questions about this?
This is Jessica Hollebeck with ABHR, and I'm here joined with Peggy Foreman, who's my co-bond counsel, and Kathleen Ellison, who's with Norton Rose. And I was prepared to talk to you a little bit about why we're asking for a resolution when this is something that's not been presented to you before, as well as the scope of what this Disclosure Council does. So if you don't have questions and would like to hear that.
I'd like to hear a very succinct version, Jessica.
I will be quick. So I know that some of you have done several bond issues with us before, and for some of you this is brand new. The public offering involves a official statement that is used to market the bonds that speaks to the market. As a municipal security, we aren't regulated in the same manner as private securities under SEC rules, but there is one very important one, and that is that we do not make any misstatements or fail to provide any information that a reasonable investor would find important. So that makes our disclosure document very critical that we've done it correctly. And that is exactly what your Disclosure Council would do, put that preliminary official statement and then official statement together for us. The resolution approving an engagement agreement for Disclosure Council, it is a contingent fee arrangement similar to my role as bond counsel. We only get paid if the bonds close. And about 2 sessions ago, the statute was amended by the legislature that requires governing bodies to make specific findings when you engage attorneys on a contingent fee basis. That's spelled out for you in paragraph 2 of the resolution. Specifically, you're finding that you have a need for this and that you don't have a lawyer on staff that can provide this service. Questions? I tried to be succinct, maybe too succinct.
No, and am I correct in just reading through this very carefully to answer the question? The fee amount is $100,000, is that correct?
That's correct.
Correct. That's on page 27 in the engagement.
Okay, did everybody hear that? Just to answer that question that some I'm sure would have. Okay, now I just when it says each series of bonds, is this 100 times 2?
This only applies to your public offering. The private placement doesn't involve an official statement that speaks to the market.
That's what I thought. Okay, so
but it would apply to future bond issues. Yes.
Okay, because it talks about each series of bonds, and we do have 2 series here, but we're really only talking about the public offering.
Correct.
Okay. Questions, anybody? Okay. If there are no questions, I'd like to request a motion to approve the resolution that's in your book, and approving the engagement agreement for Disclosure Council and authorization of execution of the engagement letter. Do I have a motion to that effect, please?
Mary Carmen Tenez, so moved.
Second.
Dot Cunningham, second.
Thank you, Dot. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Stephen, you want to address the preliminary official statement?
Sir, we would like to ask the board to authorize staff and consultants to prepare the offering document that we've been discussing, the preliminary official statement.
For the public offering.
For the public offering.
For the public offering. I don't know what any questions would be. Since we've done all the rest of this, I think we probably need to have a motion and approve it. So would someone like to make that motion, please?
Louis Sklar, so moved.
Second?
Mary Carmen Tamez, I'll second.
Thank you, Mary Carmen. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Breeding, is there any other business we have?
We have nothing else to bring before you at this time.
Okay, so we're going to recess the Uptown Development Authority meeting. We're going to reconvene the TIRZ meeting, and then we're going to adjourn Reinvestment Zone number 16, City of Houston, and the Uptown Development Authority meeting. So this meeting is concluded.